wow, this book made me lose my will to live. Oh God. Oh no. I don't recommend this book to anyone. Hello creeps. Andy here, and about a month ago, I made a video reading extreme, vile, disgusting horror books, and you guys left a lot of recommendations for books to read under that video. So today I decided to read your extreme horror book recommendations. Now, were these books already in my Amazon cart and I really wanted to read them, and now my husband couldn't get mad at me because technically it was for a video and I wasn't just buying more books to buy more books even though we have a mortgage to pay? Yes. So these are books that I was either wanted to read, were already in my Amazon cart, or books that I've seen everywhere and I was just interested in, but they are books that you guys recommended. So I purchased them, I read them, and let me tell you, you guys are disgusting. You are vile. And I am so glad that you are here. So yeah, I read them and I decided I'm gonna sue you all. Cease and sits for everyone. Hold on, let me introduce you to my lawyer and maybe that'll make a little bit more sense.
This is maybe the dumbest thing I've ever done. Oh, I wonder, you want to join in? Okay, Marlo is frozen with fear and will not sit, but here they are, my two lawyers.
That was so ridiculous. I apologize for wasting 5 seconds of your life that you will never get back. But let's get into these horror books. So just a warning, a lot of vile stuff happens in these books. I will try to give you some idea of what goes on in them, but I'm also going to try to keep this video monetized and I don't want to give too much away about some of these books. So just know I'm not recommending these to everybody. Do your research before you read any of them, and also before you watch this video, know that there's going to be some dark, disturbing stuff in here. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to introduce the books to you. I'll talk about them in the order of which I read them. I'll leave timestamps in case you only want to hear about a certain book. I will, at the end, rank them from my least favorite to most favorite, and then also from the least disturbing to the most disturbing. So let's get into it. Extreme horror books that you guys have recommended. Okay. Oh, ow. The first one we're going to be talking about is Maeve Fly by CJ Leede. Next up on our list is Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison. Third up, we're talking about Woom by Duncan Ralston. And last up here, we're going to be talking about Cows by Matthew, I think it's Stokoe. Okay, so first up, Maeve Fly by CJ Leede. So I saw this book cover, I think at the beginning of this year, maybe even late last year, and immediately fell in love with it. I thought this is maybe one of the best horror book covers I've ever seen. And it did not disappoint. It relates to the book, it makes sense with what happens in the book. It's just fantastic. I mean, I think we just need to take a second and appreciate how beautiful this cover is. Okay, so the story is about a girl named Maeve Fly. Bet you wouldn't have guessed that. She lives with her grandmother and they're kind of two peas in a pod, odd characters. They don't really feel like they fit in society. They kind of keep to themselves and do their own thing. Maeve has a best friend who she works with at Disneyland. They are Disney princesses. She ends up meeting her best friend's brother and he adds more complexity to the story. She feels like there's something dark inside of her and she reads a lot of books and she comes to this climax where she decides to kind of embody Patrick Bateman and the story unfolds from there. I gotta say, I love her writing style. It feels like almost a mixture of Bret Easton Ellis and Chuck Palahniuk's. She has an interesting style of writing. It kept me engaged the entire time. It was a really interesting book. There's just simple stuff in here, some torture, some good old American murder. It really isn't that bad. In fact, it's less vile than even American Psycho, and you know that's one of my favorite books ever written. So yeah, it's really not that bad, but that's also coming from the person that unintentionally dubbed themselves Baby in the Blender Girl online. So take that with a grain of salt. But I really didn't think that this book was that bad. I've also been reading some really vile stuff lately, so who knows. But man, did I love this book. I'm so excited to see what she reads next. Also, my husband says that her last name's Leede, and I pronounced it Lead. And so I don't know, and I'm not sure which one of us is right, and now he's making me question myself and question everything. So I don't know, let me know if you guys know how to pronounce it correctly. But let me give you some quotes in here because the one-liners in here are just fantastic. I love the details of the little flies on the page. Absolutely loved the cover. I think this is, I'm not really into getting hardback books, but this is a copy that I'm so glad that I got in cover. So let me just read you a few quotes in here. It says, "We all seek the dream of beauty, even as we know fundamentally it is only a facade for the decaying in the dark." There's also this line, "I know he is not the skin he wears at present." Such a great line. This right here, she's talking about how much she loves Halloween. The character loves Halloween. That Halloween music is playing everywhere. She says that music can make a place feel your own. And this time of year, for 1 month without fail, my music plays everywhere. The world becomes a little more mine, which I think a lot of us horror lovers and Halloween lovers feel like during the time of Halloween. Like the world just feels a little bit more accepting of what you love and appreciate. And then this here says, some come, oh, this is talking about LA. It says, "Some come for the sunshine, some for the lights of the soundstage, and some for the dark." There are so many amazing lines in this book. I honestly can't recommend this book enough. If you guys want kind of an introduction to extreme horror that's not that vile, I would suggest picking this up. It's a great story. It's not just blood and guts. There's more to it than that. There's a lot to analyze in here. I really love this book. So, highly recommend this guy if you guys want something that isn't too intense. Next up, let's talk about Dead Inside, because I promise you, after you read this book, you will feel dead inside. This book is vile. It is disgusting. It is nightmare inducing. This book is awful. And I gotta tell you, I loved every single page in this book. So it's about a security guard that works at a hospital. Well, he's into necrophilia. So he works at the hospital so that he has access to the women who have passed in the morgue. Already pretty gross, right? Oh, it does not stop there. He meets a maternity doctor at the hospital who has a horrifically unusual appetite. And if I just tell you that cannibalism is involved in this story, that's not enough to explain how gross and vile this is. But be warned, there's stuff like this. There's disturbing stuff that is related to this. That, you know, I'm trying to keep this video monetized, so bear with me here. This book is absolutely vile. Do not get me wrong. I'm not recommending this for everybody at all. But if you want something to test your limits, this is a good book for you. I thought this was fantastically written. I really loved the story. It was almost cute. Okay, oh my gosh, something as seriously Baby in the Blender has messed me up in the head. But it is kind of a cute story. It really is. I think for me, at its core, finding people that make you feel less alone in the world and finding people that are like-minded or are into the same things you're into. Obviously, I'm not saying that we all like to corpses, but it is a nice story to read. You know, for somebody who grew up not having a lot of friends who were into horror, none of my friends read. Nobody read my whole life growing up. I was the only person that I knew besides my family who read a bunch of books. So it is cool, like, I don't know, even starting a channel and having some of you here to talk about books to me. So I feel like that's how I took this book, was just kind of growing up, feeling like you don't really fit in, and then kind of finding your place in the world. And there's something kind of beautiful about that, no matter how dark and twisted this book is. Let me read you a few quotes from here. Okay, so what I was gonna say is, I don't think I'm giving too much away saying that he's into necrophilia, because this is page 10, and it starts on page 7. So it's 3 pages into the book. He's talking about this sexual experience with a girl, but he isn't into it, and he says, "There's just too much color in her face. Too much light in her eyes, and I can feel the warm body heat radiating off of her. She could be almost perfect if she wasn't oozing all that sprightly vitality." There's a lot of humor in here as well. He says, "I'm daydreaming of chilly kisses punctuated with black tongues and chipped gray teeth." You guys are gonna think I'm disgusting, but this book is so good. And you know what? I kind of owe Baby in a Blender an apology, because there's some crossover of things that happen in this book and that. I think the difference is, I feel like Baby in the Blender is gross to be gross, and I feel like there are scenes in here that are absolutely vile, disturbing, disgusting, but at its core, I think that there is more than just blood and guts to the story, and that's what I like. And the quotes in here are fantastic. Sorry, my husband's home. That's why my dog's barking. He references White Elephants, so Hills Like White Elephants, that Hemingway story, which was written in the 20s, which is absolutely wild. He references Bukowski in here, Kurt Vonnegut, not once but twice, and you know, anybody who loves Kurt Vonnegut is good with me. of Chuck Palahniuk. Just a lot of great literary figures in here, which I appreciated. One second. What happened?
Sure.
Yeah, I know, and they're your expensive shirts too. Sorry. As I was saying, a lot of great lines in here. This one says, this is, I thought, hilarious. Other people watch porn, but I jack off to Night of the Living Dead. I just feel like there's a lot of humor and good stuff in here, even though it's so gross. This one says, there's just something about meeting someone who's even more fucked up than you are. There were times when I was reading where I was like, oh God, oh no. You know, it's one of those books, but honestly, if you want to test your limits and if you're not offended easily, I would suggest this one. I loved this book. It was so great. Next up, I picked up Duncan Ralston's Woom, which I have seen absolutely everywhere. I've seen people talk about how gross and vile and disgusting it is. And to be honest, I read the first half of this book and I was like, this is pretty light. And then I got to the end and I was like, oh, we're going there. We're going, okay, let's go there. Strap on in, buds. And we did, we went there. So this is about a man, he hires a sex worker to come to his hotel room, and then he kind of tells her a bunch of stories, and a lot of them are related to that hotel room that they're staying in, a lot of awful things that happen to people. There's a lot of themes of just being disappointed by the people who are supposed to love you the most in this book. It's a lot of awful things happen, yeah. But the stories kind of come around and link back up, and the ending is, I can promise you, you won't guess it. It is a unique story for sure. I will say that this one, I did really enjoy this one too. I really liked the ending. I liked the way that things were set up, and the ending was really interesting. It says it on the back. So it says, his name's Angel, and it says, Angel knows about pain. His mother died in this hotel. He's researched its history. Today, he's come back to end it, no matter the cost, once and for all. It deals with stuff like drug addiction and death, obviously. Oh, but there's also some worse stuff in here too. Things get pretty intense in this one, but not as intense as Dead Alive. So if you can handle that, I think you can handle this one. It's still a good story. The only thing I'll say is that with those, I feel like you gotta grab a shovel, and dig a little deeper, and there's a little bit meaning under the surface. And although there's definitely some metaphor and stuff in here, I do think that it's more of a surface level story, which is not a problem. There's no problem with that. It's up to the reader what they like. But I will say that this one, I didn't like highlight a bunch of lines in like the previous two. Yeah, it just depends what you're into, what you feel like reading. This one's just surface level. You don't have to do any of the work. You just gotta read it and see what happens, because oh boy, you're in for a ride. Do you want a book about talking cows, bestiality, and eating fecal matter? Well, have I got the book for you. That is Cows by Matthew, I think it's Stokoe. And wow, this book made me lose my will to live. Man, this book was so messed up. Oh my gosh, it was so messed up. It was so messed up. How do I even start? I'm gonna give you a synopsis and then we're gonna talk about some disturbing things, because if I told you every disturbing thing that I remember that happened in this book, it still wouldn't ruin the story, because there is so much on every page, disturbing after disturbing after disgusting, page after page. I'm telling you, you need a exorcist to get through this book. It's rough. But anyways, so it's about a man named Stephen. He lives with his mother, whom we only know as Hag Beast. She has no other name. She's very abusive, verbally, physically abusive to him, and also feeds him food that makes him ill. He begins working at a slaughterhouse where his boss tries to lure him into murdering cows to gain power. And he also has a neighbor named, I think her name's Lucy, who feels like there is something poisonous within her. I'm telling you, this book is wild. I felt like I was on acid the whole time I was reading it. I'd read it and be like, wait, did they just say they ate shit? And I'd scroll back and be like, okay, yeah, no, they did. And then I'd be like, wait, did they just say the cows were talking? And then I'd scroll back and be like, okay, yeah, they did. Like, I'm telling you, this book is a trip. However, I did not hate it. I actually rather enjoyed the story as well. I don't know what that says about me up here. Am I doing okay? I don't know. I really am not sure. But I did really enjoy this book. And let me take you on a journey as to why. I think there's a lot of themes in here about feeling powerless, about being emasculated, the main character is emasculated by his mother, and then the cows even talk about being emasculated by having the humans in the slaughterhouse kill their brethren, and also attempting to fill the void of what's missing in their life. Stephen really wants what the people on TV have, and he spends his life trying to fit into that mold, which is rather ironic because that's not real, right? Like, that's not how real people live. And so it's interesting that he's trying to obtain something that is unobtainable. He also uses the murder of cows and stuff to achieve that power, and he uses the cows' adoration. Oh, I guess I should explain. So the cows that talk to him are cows that have gotten away in the slaughterhouse, and they live underground in tunnels. So they come and talk to him and ask for help, and he kind of feeds off of their adoration of him too. The cows are kind of mirror images of Stephen, because they're doing kind of what Stephen's doing. They are trying to fill their own voids. They're trying to become more powerful in ways and, again, find a life that they don't quite fit into. And at the end, Stephen and the cows kind of become what they hate, which is rather interesting. Man, there's so much to dig through here. I feel like I could read this book 8 times. Not that I will ever pick this book up again, but I feel like I could read through this book a lot and still have different stuff to analyze within this book. I haven't really fully figured out the metaphor of the cows. I don't exactly know why cows specifically. There's a lot that I haven't unpacked. So if you have any ideas about this book, I would love to hear them down below, or any of these. But I did want to read you some quotes. Here's what the first paragraph starts. Well, it starts as in bed, but this is the second sentence. It says, Stephen could feel the toxins tumbling slowly through his bloodstream, jagged black particles that rolled in a slow motion undersea current, gouging soft tissue with their passing. Talk about an intriguing way to start a story. There's some just gross lines in here, like the kitchen stank of gas and oil and the caked dead fish decay that came out between her legs. That is, of course, talking about his own mother. Then we have his conversations with Lucy. So he tells Lucy that he's working at a slaughterhouse now. She asks if he's looked inside the animal, and he asks for what? Sorry, it stopped recording, so it might look a little bit different. Where was I? She asked if he's looked inside the cows for toxin or for poisons, and he says toxins are stored in muscles, and she says, I'm not talking about toxins. You think I'm talking about sugar and caffeine and all that shit? Fuck, just being alive does it. That and what your parents do to you before you get strong enough to stop them. And even when you can stop them, it's too late. The seed's there and it grows and grows until it jams all your systems in your body and your mind fucks up. Didn't you see anything like that? And so her whole character is obsessed with finding these toxins, or she says poisons within herself, and she becomes frustrated when she can't find them. This actually reminded me of this poem right here. It's by Philip Larkin. It just says, they fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and had some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old style hats and coats who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can and don't have any kids yourself. So I don't know if that's maybe another common theme in here, is like the trauma that we pass on from generation to generation. I'm not exactly sure how the cows would fit into that. I haven't really unpacked everything in this book. I'm just a girl with a bachelor's degree in creative writing who knows nothing and makes videos online about books. Like, I really don't know. I haven't fully figured this guy out. I also absolutely love this quote. They're talking about how much a cow heart weighs, and then this quote says, our hearts are only 2 pounds, not much room for love. Fuck, man. There's some good stuff in here. It's disgusting. There's some good stuff. Let me tell you a really gross scene in here to just kind of give you an idea of the vileness of this book, because I don't want anybody going into this thinking that it's going to be an easy read. At the slaughterhouse, they kill the cow. Bestiality isn't even a word that describes the vileness of this. Then they cut holes, a bunch of holes around the stomach of the cow, and then them. They the cow holes. I'm telling you, there's so much gross and weird shit in this book, and it is just page after page after page of vileness. So I don't recommend this book to anyone. I enjoyed reading it. I did. I thought that there was some interesting stuff in here, but it's like 200 pages of awfulness. So, you know, keep that in mind. Now let me rank them for you. Let's start with my least favorite to most favorite. I didn't dislike any of these books, to be honest. I actually really enjoyed reading all of them. However, Cows would have to be in fourth place simply because it was 200 pages of just hell. Like, it was really tough to get through. And although I feel like there's enough story in there, it really wasn't like a normal horror book where it gave you a little bit of a break. It was just, 10 pages of describing eating shit. I had to only read 50 pages a day, and even then, I barely got through this book. It was a tough read. So because of that, it's in last place, even though I did enjoy it. Next, I would say it was Woom. Some really unique stuff in here. I liked the way that the story was set up and written, but it's definitely more of a surface level book, which nothing wrong with that. Still really enjoyed it, but I like stories where I can dig a little bit. Next up, I would say is Dead Alive. Dead Alive is fantastic. It's such a great book for me, but it was still hard to get through. Girl stuff, absolutely vile, still loved it. And then in first place, Maeve Fly. I loved this book. This is one that I can see myself rereading every year. It's that good. The other ones, I don't know how often I'll reach for them, but I am interested in Chandler Morrison's other work because I really did enjoy his writing style. And then let's rank them from brutality. So obviously Maeve Fly, I feel like, is the least intense of these. Next, I would say is Woom. This one isn't as bad as I was expecting, or I'm just really desensitized. Next up, I would say is Dead Alive. This one was pretty intense, but what takes the cake is Cows. That one was rough. Or should I say moo? Don't unsubscribe, please. Anyways, those are the books. I hope that you're not disappointed that I didn't go into more detail, but I didn't want to give the books away. I really went into these not knowing much about them, and I'm kind of glad I did. And also, I am trying to keep this video monetized. But there are really gross stuff in all of these books. I feel like I've blocked out half of it already. Don't know how I'm doing up in the old noggin. Think I'm gonna take a break from these extreme horror novels for a minute. I'm gonna go read a nice relaxing thriller to get my head out of the gutter. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please feel free to leave other extreme horror recommendations below, or I would love to know if you guys would like a part 2 to this, because there are so many other recommendations on the other video as well. So let me know if you want more extreme horror content. Otherwise, I will see you soon with another normal horror video. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.